Good morning, History 1700 students. Today is day 2.3, week 2, day 3. I hope you guys are able to get your peer reviews done by tomorrow, and also obviously submit your rough drafts along with your peer review forms. I hope the feedback that you're giving to your peers about the paper will help them make their final draft even better, and I'm hoping that you're all able to get the interviewees that you need, 2 of them, not just one, in your rough draft. Realize that sometimes you can't get your both interviewees, and that's okay, but just put your best foot forward for your rough draft. Today's topic is a fun one. Before I get into today's topic, there's one other thing I wanted to mention. Just looking through your first short answers, which I'll hopefully get done grading today. There were a few of you who just writing from your own experience. You're not giving specific references in your short answers. You're losing major points if you're not putting in specific references from readings. You need to show me that you're engaging with readings. So make sure you're giving, like I said, 2 specific references. Don't just say, in the article we read this week. No, don't say something like that. For this week, say, in Lowen's reading, The True Importance of Christopher Columbus, something like that, blah, blah, blah. And then if you use him a second time, just say, Lowen said, or in the chapter about Columbus, blah, blah, blah. Be very specific about the first time you bring it up. If you're doing 2 different sources, obviously you're going to want to use last name and or title. Both is even better, but be very specific in what you're bringing up. But don't let the examples from the readings, the quotes or information that you'll cite from the readings, do all the talking. You've got to explain in your own words why what you're bringing up is important. So make sure you are doing that. If you're not, you're losing major points. And this short answer week 1 is the only one I will allow you to resubmit for more points once you've met those requirements of putting in those better examples. Well, not better examples period. So please, if you want to get your points back, please put those specific references in. Make sure you're providing your own analysis on those references, and get that in ASAP. I'll give you a week, so have the resubmission for week 1 in by next Friday. Let's see. That was it. I think that was it for housekeeping stuff. Again, if you have any other questions, let me know. But false start earlier. As I was saying, today's topic is a fun one. It is Thomas Jefferson and the Louisiana Purchase, and then Lewis and Clark. Louisiana Purchase is fun because it gave us basically a third of our country. Jefferson sent his envoys into the negotiations, only thinking he was, going to get New Orleans. That's what he was going for, to open up, shipping lanes in the Mississippi River mainly. But Napoleon had just acquired this territory from Spain, and was wanting to unload it, wanting the money he could get from it. And so gave him the whole shebang, was offering the whole shebang, basically a third of our country today. And Thomas Jefferson deliberated over this a little bit because, as we mentioned last time, he was a strict constructionist of the Constitution, and so he had just a mental anguish thinking, the Constitution doesn't say anything about purchasing foreign lands. What am I going to do? And he thought to make his conscience feel better, hey, maybe we'll make a constitutional amendment that talks about foreign lands. But then he thought, oh, that's going to take too long. And he knew this was a great deal, and window might not be open for very long, and he saw it as a diplomatic move that could maybe avoid a war as well. And so it was just a win-win. And so even though the Constitution said nothing about purchasing foreign lands, did not delineate anything as far as that situation went, he decided, well, let's pull the trigger on this and make it happen. And that is, the Louisiana Purchase is one of the major accomplishments of his presidency. So kind of interesting that he went against his former principles to uphold the Constitution, and if it didn't say what we could do, we shouldn't do it. He went against that because of the circumstances he was under to make that purchase. So after purchasing Louisiana, $15 million, he decided, hey, we need to explore this new land that we've acquired. And so he commissioned his personal secretary, Meriwether Lewis, and then excuse me, and then William Clark to be the heads of what would be known as the Corps of Discovery, to explore this area, map it out, see what it had, scientific knowledge as well, what it had as far as vegetation, what it had as far as wildlife, those kind of things. So Lewis and Clark set out 1804 from St. Louis, Missouri, to explore this land. And important to mention, they were still clinging to this notion that there was a northwest passage, meaning a water route to the Pacific Ocean. And they quickly realized that was not the case. They were in boats on a river, Missouri River at first, and they had to portage, meaning get their boats, carry their boats to the next place where they could put them in the river quite a bit. And so they realized there is no northwest passage. That is one of the first things to mention. But their dealings with the Indians, that is another big topic during their journey, I should say. In their journeys with the Indians, they talked highly of them, but it was clear in their language that they felt that they were superior to the Indians. They would call them our red children. Okay, that is kind of an indication. Clark in his journal called them red children. That was kind of an indication of them seeing themselves as superior to the Indians. But in fact, they were really dealing with their equals, but they didn't feel like it. They felt like they were obviously, racially and intellectually superior to these Indians, when really they weren't. And Corps of Discovery, we find, is a misnomer, because this area had already been discovered. There were already Native Americans there, and the French trappers especially had already been there. There were routes, trading routes established. The fur trapping was one of the major ones. So it wasn't an undiscovered land as we kind of are taught, especially at the elementary level. So one of the things that I'm going to have you look at here is the Corps of Discovery, should it be play a major significant role in American history? Does it get too much more credit than it deserves? And so found these 3 readings, and they're just snippets. Okay, they're introductions. 2 of them are introductions from books. One of them is a few chapters of the book. But the first one is the preface to Stephen Ambrose's book Undaunted Courage, which looks at the Lewis and Clark's journey. And this guy, Stephen Ambrose, panned by my graduate professors as a commercial historian, only writing books to make history sound good for the general reader, and he does just that. He is just dripping pro Jefferson. Jefferson was amazing, could do no wrong. This was just one of the greatest feats of American history, and you'll see that in that preface, the way he talks about it. So very pro, biased pro Jefferson, pro Lewis and Clark. So that's the first one. Second one gives a completely different view, and it is a book that came out at the time of the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark voyages in 2004 through 2006, and it is called Lewis and Clark Through Indian Eyes, and it is just that. It is Native American authors writing about Lewis and Clark, and they have a completely different view from Ambrose. They view it as a mythological adventure because that's what Americans are all about, is making these myths, and they say it was just what words did they use? It was just a monotonous march all the way to the sea through, like I said before, routes that had already been established, even though it's called the core of discovery, but discovering it for the white man, but it was white British of descent, European descent, but really wasn't that significant. The Indians were like, oh yeah, we've seen these guys before because we've seen the French, but the Indians, were very kind to them most of the time. They did have a run-in with the Blackfeet, and it's incredible that they didn't have some blow-ups with the Indians, but they're close. And it is just astounding that it was a company of about 50, and only one died, and that one died of appendicitis. So that was just, in my mind, miraculous. But anyway, these Native Americans, Native American authors, just showing, panning this core of discovery, showing that it wasn't that significant, showing that Lewis and Clark were pretty prejudiced against the Indians, even though they wrote about them glowingly, and writing about this day and age when people come to Lewis and Clark sites. All they want to know about is what happened when Lewis and Clark came in through. They don't want to know very much about the Native Americans, which is a shame. So those are kind of things, the viewpoints that reading has. And then the last one is a kind of more objective reading, and it is dangerous to say that historical reading is objective, but this is admittedly what James Rhonda, in his book Lewis and Clark Among the Indians, and I have the intro and the epilogue of that book for you to read. But Rhonda's whole thing is he wants to show the Lewis and Clark voyage from the eyes of the Indians, and give the Indians more of a fair shake. He shows it from Lewis and Clark's eyes as well, but his major thing is showing the significance of Native Americans to the Lewis and Clark voyage. Obviously, first and foremost is the guide, Sacagawea as a guide. She was huge in the success of their journey, and sometimes it's downplayed. But the Native Americans helped them a lot on the voyage, and that's what Ron is trying to show. And he is definitely more objective. It's harder to see his biases, but like I said, any historian who tells you they're not biased is lying to you, because we as people all have biases, and those biases are going to show through in our writing. Your biases are going to show through in the stuff that you write for this class, but that is okay. And anytime that stuff is my own opinion, I will let you know, because I am a firm believer that hey, this is not about my version of history, and that my version of history is correct. It is about you discovering these viewpoints and putting it all together and forming your own opinion about these these events and people and legislation, whatever you want to say. But the short answer for this week, the main one that everybody picks, the one for this day, I should say, not this week, is how significant really is the core discovery? Why would it be labeled significant throughout the course of American history? And one of the things that you could say that it makes it significant is that it kind of opened up the country for manifest destiny later on. The friendliness of the Indians on this voyage especially showed their weakness, was seen as a weakness, and seen that they could be trampled over, and that kind of set a precedent. Could be insignificant because, like I've been saying, they didn't really discover anything. They helped realize what was out there for the U.S., but there are already obviously Native Americans and French, especially fur trappers there. So you decide after reading these readings: is the core discovery significant, or is it really not that significant in the whole scheme of American history? And that's for you to discover for yourselves, and again, develop your own opinion after doing these readings. The completely biased one on one side, the completely biased one on the other side, and then one that kind of puts them together objectively, and that's what I was going for with these readings. And hopefully they will be enlightening. Hopefully they will be something that you haven't read or heard about Lewis and Clark. But pretty fun. I really enjoyed looking at them myself, and glad I discovered them myself. So anyway, signing out for another week. Hopefully you can get all that stuff done. I will be grading furiously in any free time I have. So please be patient with me, and we will see you in our Google Meet next Tuesday. So have a good weekend. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.